I believe AI is going to really help on the imaging side, not doing anything other than it's going to be able to read and give the information so that the doctor can spend less time verifying and validating that the AI did what they see on that image and that it's accurate, as opposed to having to do it all themselves. So I do think there will be some stuff that really is advantageous. And one of the things we do, back to inside, how do you scale and what do you do? We have programs internally and they're developed by doctors for doctors. And it's all about the best demonstrated practices. So when you start scaling, you get the benefit of seeing things that work amazingly well in certain locations. And you bring them together and you create programs, and then you invite all the other partners and associates in to be trained on those pieces.
Hey there, dental economist. If you're a dentist owner or a leader within a dental business thinking about growing production, case acceptance, patient and staff satisfaction, positive outcomes, and everything else that comes with running a dental business, then you're a dental economist, and you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Dental Economist Show. We're meeting at the intersection of profit and purpose as I sit down with dental leaders who share their stories about dentistry, business, and growth. Welcome back to the Dental Economist Show with me, Mike Huffaker. Before we get started, if you enjoy this podcast, it would be greatly appreciated if you like, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you are listening from. Thank you for your support. So today, I am thrilled to welcome Scotte Hudsmith, a highly respected leader in the healthcare space, known for his extensive experience scaling dental and orthodontic organizations. As the chairman and CEO of Specialized Dental Partners, Scotte has played a pivotal role in growing practices and navigating the complexities of mergers and acquisitions while building successful strategies for private equity-backed companies. Scotte, it is a real pleasure to have you on the show today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, maybe to get started, I was looking at your background and you've got a wealth of experience over the past 30 years, working with many organizations, scaling, growing. You've been in the dental space for quite some time now. What initially drew you to the dental sector? How did you get here?
It's kind of a funny story. I accidentally met an amazing orthodontist named Scott Paul, who was co-founder partner at Smile Doctors, along with Dana Fender and Greg Goggins. And Scott and I accidentally met and got together and ended up thinking that I was meeting with someone else and ended up going to an interview for a role that he was looking for to scale his platform. And we spent some time together and jumped into it. There's a funny story behind it. I told my wife, I was living in Nashville at the time, and Nashville's a very, heavy healthcare community. And I told my wife when I left Nashville, don't worry about it. We're not going to move to Texas. And I spent about a week with Scott, and I came home and I said, I really think we need to move to Texas. This is a great opportunity and a great person. And that was kind of the beginning of Smile Doctors.
That's fantastic. So who did you think you were meeting, or where did you think you were going when you ran into Dr. Law?
I actually knew I was going to his place, but at that point, it was the way it went down with a headhunter, and I thought I was talking to someone else and ended up speaking with Scott. So it turned out to be a great opportunity. I have dental in my history. My stepdad was a dentist. My brother is a dentist. My nephew's a dentist. So, and when I was in college, I had actually helped my stepdad's practice and some of his, at the time, not business partners because nobody affiliated back then, but other folks with some of their business functions. So I was very familiar with dental and saw the opportunity that was there.
Yeah, so let's talk about Smile Doctors a little bit more. You played a critical role in their rapid expansion. I think when you joined somewhere around 2 locations and you kind of helped scale it to 200 plus, and they're still growing today. Is there any sort of like defining moment or experience that you can kind of point to that changed your approach to scaling organizations, or that where things just clicked where you were like, this is the right way to go about this?
Well, we made a lot of mistakes. I mean, normal when you're growing like that, you do. And if you're not making mistakes, you're probably not pushing hard enough. And, when we came together, it was really about good people wanting to create opportunities for patients to have access to care. And, the traditional orthodontic model, you had to have fairly high income families that can afford it and the way they paid for it and what they did. And one of the things that Scott had, and the quick story is Scott had 2 locations when I joined. And we didn't even know the name Smile Doctors at that point. And we had talked about doing some stuff. We grew it to 6 locations and then combined together with Dana Fender and Greg Goggins. And that was the beginning of Smile Doctors. So we started with 13. We grew that quickly to 90 we had a private equity partner at the time. And then the second private equity partner came in, and we'd grown it to about 250 when we brought in Jay Hedrick as the CEO. And I was planning to retire in December of 19. Terrible time to retire, if you want to know. COVID was not, the best time to pick to go do that. And so Jay came in and has done an amazing job of keeping that culture and taking it forward. And it really is all about culture. It's about the passion of creating that access to care for patients. But we wanted to create a career path as well for people that didn't necessarily have a career path. And there are story after story of people that joined Smile Doctors in a role. One of my favorites is a lady who now runs a fairly large portion of Smile Doctors in an operations role. But she started out driving what we called Embrace Bus part-time, picking up kids at school and bringing them in and out. And she grew from there. It's managing the front office and then managing a practice and then a region and now has a very large role within the organization. And we have story after story like that where someone from a small town wouldn't have had that opportunity. And it's been fantastic to see how people have grown and the organization has grown. And it really comes down to good people, making sure that they're the right fit and that we're the right fit for them. And you have to do all the operational stuff and all the blocking and tackling, but people are what make the difference.
Yeah, I want to get back to kind of your false start retirement in a minute. But before we get there, kind of going back to the time at Smile Doctors, you made the comment where you said, it was 2 practices. We didn't even know the name Smile Doctors. Obviously, there's been a focus on bringing really great people into the organization. But in some sense, it must have felt a little bit like, to use this phrase that maybe is sometimes overused, building the plane while you're flying it. At what point, are there any kind of key milestones where you're like, listen, we now have to define what our culture is, or we now have to determine what our organizational structure is going to look like? Or did it happen in a more organic manner?
So we had a business plan for what the organizational structure would look like and when we would bring people down. And that was something that I had brought from a different business background and experience, and kind of had it ready to go in that process. As far as a defining moment, we really needed to make sure, especially Scott and Dana, because of the roles they were doing. Dana was helping with affiliations and Scott was leading the clinical side of the equation, that they got along. So I took Dana and I took Scott, and we flew and met Dana in the Delta Sky Club and locked ourselves in a little conference room. And I did my best to get the 2 of them to fight with each other throughout the day, to see where the pressure and pain points were. And we agreed on everything. We just agreed on where we were going. And then the next hurdle was Greg. Greg led the compliance side for us and a lot of the integrations and bringing doctors in as well. And so we got together with Greg. And at the time, he was on the Georgia Dental Board. So he was really concerned that we did it the right way and that we did everything that was there, which we always wanted. But having his knowledge and experience to help us do that was amazing. So it was foundationally there from the beginning. To answer your question, and our original plan had us growing to 45 locations.
Okay.
And we were going to add Fido in and did briefly, and then decided to pull back from that and just remain orthodontic focused at the time until we got bigger.
So maybe going back to that this is actually curious. When you have the initial plan for 45 locations, which you've clearly shot past, there's a notion of like growth for the sake of growth. There's also the notion of like growth that's actually strategic and well organized. How did you, with the business plan and the strategy that you were deploying, determine what the right pace was within which to grow? And what were some of the factors that played a part in your understanding of like, yes, this is the right move. This is something that we have these things in place. So now we can go here or to the next step.
It looks to the external world that it was just always go, go, go. But we had moments where we, we'd quote pump the brakes. We would pause, make sure that we weren't going to break it. And then we would go again and we'd keep the active discussions happening that were out there. And, it was built by when someone joined us, asking them, who have you always wanted to partner with that you spend time with, at least on the orthodontic side, at AEO and specialized dental, at AE or AAP, now that we have perio, or AMIS, now that we have oral surgery. But who would you want to be partners with? And go invite them to the table. And that way we knew we were getting people who were going to be a fit. And we would spend a lot of time up front. We said no to a lot of people. The people that showed up and really all they cared about was money. They didn't ask about taking care of their team and what was going to happen to them and where it was going. And it was all about money and me, and what am I going to get paid? We would have a nice meal and say, maybe we're not a fit, and try and keep the relationship together and move forward. And we've kept that philosophy really in all the platforms that I'm involved with. I'm on the board of a couple of others as well. And we try and keep that culture and philosophy.
Yeah. So maybe along those lines, you're operating with discipline and discernment in those that you decide to partner with. I'm sure that plays a large part in this question that I have, but that is, how do you protect or preserve, or maybe a better word is extend the culture as you scale an organization? Maybe not specifically with Smile Doctors, but in your experience, what are some of the key components to ensuring that you're able to maintain that which is important from a cultural perspective?
So, culture does have the word cult in it, right? And to a degree, you have to have a little bit of that, meaning that you have to have champions and people that truly believe in it. In our case, and really this is any of the platforms that I've been involved in, and certainly at Smile Doctors and Specialized, we create ambassadors internally, the people who really get it. And they go help spread that culture, and they spend time coaching and pulling people into it. And they become champions for helping really welcome the new folks to the team, helping them bridge the gap for how to get from where they were into the current culture. And there are really micro cultures at a practice. And then there's the organization culture on top of it. And you try and get them as close as you can, but you don't want to break what's been working for many years at a local level. So you do your best to balance them out and pull things together. And we followed a rule instead of 80-20, we kind of looked at it, and I've always used 80-15-5. So 80% needs to be, the same across the board from a standardization standpoint. 15% will be close, and 5% will be unique to the local area. And, if you're a great example, let's say you're, somewhere in West Texas and your population is largely Hispanic. Well, your communication vehicles, your marketing materials and everything need to be in Spanish and English. You may not need that if you're, in the Midwest. So, that would be a 5% item that you would have in place.
I've never heard 80-15-5 before, and it makes a ton of sense when you explain it that way. It allows for the protection of that which is unique in those areas from a geographic perspective, and allows people to kind of keep some of the special things that they need to do in order to best take care of their patients. When you think about these kind of culture champions that you're talking about, how do you go about fostering those? Is it a volunteer? Like, are you that direct? Like, hey, we need people that are going to, carry our culture out within our organization, and it's something that people volunteer for, or do you tap people on the shoulder that you just think would be great for it? What's the process there?
We offer the opportunity for people to raise their hand to say, hey, I want to go do that. And then occasionally it is tap someone on the shoulder and say, hey, we think you'd be awesome at this. We don't ever do the voluntold. We don't, show up and say, hey, this, because, they're not going to believe in it. They're not truly going to be a champion if you go down that path. So we spend a lot of time investing in those folks, and we have them meet on a regular basis and talk about what's working, what's not working. And then, it evolves and grows as the organization grows. Things that you do when you're, 10 locations are very different than what you do when you're a few hundred locations.
Yeah. So you pretend retired after Smile Doctors. You mentioned that maybe the timing wasn't great. That was like right around when COVID was hitting. But kind of walk through the path that you took post Smile Doctors to Specialized and how that all transpired.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, when Jay came in, I remained as chairman. And Jay and I were traveling around the country. I was introducing him to, all the different practices and partners and vendor partners, everything else that was out there. Obviously, that was shut down in March of 2020. And at the time, I had started looking around and sitting on different boards, and I was asked to join the US Endo board. And so when things started, kind of ramping down, I spent a lot of time coaching the folks that were on the leadership team at the US Endo board and a few other boards as well. And when Quad C came in, our current private equity partner, they asked me to step back in and step into the role of chairman and CEO. And I had, had enough time sitting on boards. I think my wife had enough time of me not being maybe fully engaged as well. She swears that one day I was in the garage and tried to, suggest have she park the car. I don't remember doing that, but I've been told I did. And, I really love the opportunity and the culture that US Endo had. And I don't know if US Endo actually started one of the founding doctors, Scott Law's wife, used to work in his office, and one of the founding internists had actually written Scott's recommendation letter to go to ortho school. So there's a close relationship across the partnership and things over there. So a lot of the foundational things that we've done at Smile Doctors actually existed at US Endo and had been captured in the culture that had been observed by some of the endodontists as we were growing Smile Doctors. So it was really good to step in and be part of it and go help a group here. And we have a team, our leadership team is a little bit younger than me, and that's a good thing. And so what we're doing is we're coaching them and really have a plan in place. At some point, I'll move to the chairman role, and the gentleman, Ronnie Rowell, who's our president, will end up likely stepping in and being CEO. And one of the guys who was on the business development side is now EVP of operations. So he'll likely move into the CEO role. So we have a good transition plan, and they're getting the benefit of my gray hairs and the scars of having done it multiple times. And we're able to create something that's unique and special for specialized dental, but has a proven track record of working.
And your wife is no longer taking direction on how to park the car in the garage. So it's win-wins all the way around.
I'm fairly certain, this is why I don't think that I did this, because I think she would have just run over me, so I was standing there. Maybe I was standing to the side and she couldn't hit me, but I'm just we've had a lot of conversations about what it might look like the next time. And I don't think I'll ever really retire. I think I'll sit on boards and coach. And I love coaching executives on how to be good leaders. That's my passion. And, how to get transparent, how to build a culture, how to make sure you're growing leaders along the way and things like that are really what I truly love. And I think you can do that in any industry. I don't think those skill sets are specific to dental or healthcare or anything else. I think it's possible across it.
It's actually really interesting. I'd love to kind of get more of your take on this because it's something I think about a lot. I don't really understand the concept of retirement. And maybe at this point in my career, it's like it's far enough off that when I get there, I'll say, okay, well, yes, this is something to stop. But what would you be doing if you just weren't doing anything? It doesn't. The whole kind of concept of that doesn't sink into me at all. And so I think, when I hear you talk about it, say like, here's different things that like still provide me fulfillment that I would like to continue to pursue, seems like the right way to approach it.
Yeah. I mean, my thing, and I joke with this with our board and our leadership team all the time. I say, look, I don't want to have gone and had a great steak meal with doctors. Every doctor loves to go to the steak restaurant in town when they want to come join you. And, and usually, especially if you're in rural parts of the country, you're in a Fairfield Inn or a Marriott Courtyard, nothing wrong with them. But, I really don't want to pass away after a great steak meal at a Fairfield Inn and, in some small town America. That's not how I want to spend the rest of my life. And so
That's
when
right.
I talk about retiring, it's not really retiring, but it's not traveling multiple days a week and And going to those meals and events and doing those things, I still want to be actively involved in helping dentistry overall continue to succeed and help grow leaders and do things where I can. So it's just a little different role, maybe.
Is the freedom to choose not to do certain things, like be in the middle of nowhere at a Fairfield Inn and Suites with the chance that that's where you don't wake up in the morning. Yes, I love that. With US Endo Partners, just so I understand, is Specialized the parent company over US Endo? What is the structure like?
So we started out as US Endo, started in December of 2018. It was backed by Thurston, and they got together a group of people who, a few of them are some of the leaders that I mentioned earlier. And they pulled together 3 practices really in December of 18, and then took off and grew significantly, and today we have 265 locations, about 420 or so specialists. And in August of 21, it might have been 22, we found a group, and we always kind of had it as part of our roadmap. We found a group that was out there that was doing integrated care. So our version of integrated care is you have an endodontist, a periodontist, and an oral surgeon, all in the same. And quite often the patient pattern for us is that a general dentist will refer the patient to the endodontist and most likely for a root canal. However, there are times where the endodontist may not be able to treat the tooth and save the tooth. And so they would get sent back to the general dentist, who would then refer them to a periodontist or an oral surgeon, depending on the reason why. And what this group had done, they were called Cameo Dental Specialists. And one of their doctors is now our chief clinical officer. And what they had done is proven that model would work. Well, we had that in our roadmap to go do it. And so they helped accelerate it. But it's really hard to be US Endo when you have perio and oral surgeons. So we renamed ourselves Specialized Dental Partners at that point in time, and started doing this integrated care model. And we now have it in multiple markets, and we're continuing to expand that across the country. We still today are predominantly endodontics. I'd probably say 85% or so of our business is endo, 10% is perio, and 5% is oral surgery today. Those latter two are growing and continuing to expand as we go into new markets. And last year, we actually probably added, in a recruiting standpoint, as many or more periodontists than we did endodontists. So we're continuing to grow on that market. And what we'll do is we'll expand in our endodontic office and make room for the perio and oral surgeons to come in and try and do it in the same location. We'll also do it through affiliations. If the other practice is in either the same building or extremely close to each other, so that the patient can really be taken care of. And the goal is when the patient comes in, they've already had imaging, possibly, numbed up, probably not sedated, but rather than having to send them back to someone else and have them go through that again and take more time off work, if the endodontist can't treat it and he can bring in the periodontist or the oral surgeon to see the patient right then we work that into the workflow and go through the process. And so we think we're doing something unique and different. It's being done to create access to care and really have a much better patient experience. And what we would tell you, and we're working on the data to prove it, is we think that clinically it's a better experience too, because of the way the doctors spend time truly as partners working together. When they're separate, sometimes there's miscommunication that happens or a little disconnect, but when they can just step out in the hallway and look and talk and really be face to face, it's a better outcome, a better experience.
It's really cool to see continued innovation with some of these integrated models and, the expansion of them in the space to your point, to provide much better patient outcomes. And I know you're working on getting the data, but it would be shocking from a logic perspective if it didn't provide better patient outcomes for those reasons that you just shared. When you look at the now, I guess, 11, 12 years that since you initially started working, took on the CEO role of Smile Doctors to what you're doing now, what are some of the things that are easier today than they were then? And what are some of the challenges that may have gotten harder as it relates to scaling and operating efficiently in the dental industry?
So the technology and tools have gotten significantly better. And so there's a lot of things that are out there that are significantly better, but there's a long way to go. There still is not a good practice management system platform that, really is focused on dental platforms at size. And especially in the specialty area. There's a few on the general dentistry side that are really solid that can do it, but even they struggle with scale and growth. On the specialty side, it just hasn't been done yet. And in the ortho side, there's a little bit more, mostly because of Smile Doctors and some of the stuff we did with the platforms that were out there. But in endo, perio, and oral surgery, they're just not there and they're not connected in any way. So the challenge really remains having to build, which we have done multiple times, as a data warehouse that sits on top and managing that patient data and mapping it back and forth so that we can really make sure that patient has a great experience. Because the last thing you want to do is have an integrated care model and the patient comes in and they see the endodontist and then they have to repeat everything because they're seeing periodontist or oral surgeon. So we built a lot of that in the data warehouse side, but somebody truly needs to build a platform out there, because the consolidation is going to continue, and so people need to support that and build that. And, I think there's opportunities there. I know Shine is working on one, I know CareStream is working on one. They're just not there yet. So that's probably the challenge side. The other is COVID did have a lot of people leave the dental professions. And so we don't have a whole lot of hygienists, but there's not enough hygienists that are out there to really take care of the patient population. And especially folks like me. I am a boomer. I'm in the last year of the boomers, but I still qualify in there. And as we continue to age, there's a great demand for dental care for us, and there aren't enough people to take care of them. So, we need more hygienists to go through programs, to graduate and do that. And then dental assistants, I believe all of us need to start educating that there is a career path for dental assisting. And we need to do that in middle school and high school so that they understand there's a career path as they get into college, graduate college, go through and really know that it's out there in doing that. And then recruiting dentists is not easy either. There aren't enough graduating from, especially on the specialty side, from specialty programs. Pretty much any of the specialties, there's roughly 250 or so specialists that graduate per year. And depending on the specialty, it might be a little more, a little less. About 75 of those are international students, and they will go back to their home countries. The dental school has been paid by their home country to have them come here and attend, and the expectation is they go back and work in that country. And then, that leaves a very small number to accommodate a growing population where, that some percentage is going to retire, and you have to have others. So we think that the specialty programs really need to expand as well to continue to meet demand. Look, AI is going to help with some of it and get some efficiencies that are out there, but it's not going to replace the need to have a physical person that can work. And like, some people have tried robotics. That's not going to work either. You still have to have somebody who's guiding the robotic side of the equation too. So we need more people, and people need to want to go into the dental profession.
Yeah, I saw the article on some of the first procedures that were done by the robots. And the only thing I could think was, who was brave enough to volunteer to be patient zero, to say like, all right, I'm going to open up and let this robot do its thing. At some point it can be psychologically normalized, I think, in the same way that self-driving cars and other things will be, where people are like, yeah, this will be all right. But to your point, there's never going to be no need for human participation in the process, for highly trained clinical doctors, and it's AI should be able to accentuate a lot of these things. So
I believe AI is going to really help on the imaging side, not doing anything other than it's going to be able to read and give the information so that the doctor can spend less time verifying and validating that the AI did what they see on that image, and that it's accurate, as opposed to having to do it all themselves. So I do think there will be some stuff that really is advantageous. And one of the things we do back to inside, how do you scale and what do you do? We have programs internally, and they're developed by doctors for doctors. And it's all about the best demonstrated practices. So when you start scaling, you get the benefit of seeing things that work amazingly well in certain locations. And you bring them together and you create programs, and then you invite all the other partners and associates in to be trained on those pieces. And then you start doing the same thing for your practice managers and for your hygienists and dental assistants. And you can scale that way. But you really have to listen, and you have to have somebody that can organize it, and you have to have people that can teach it and that are passionate about teaching it. Back to the culture ambassadors, you have to have the same thing, the passion for going and helping people adopt these best practices. And then it's continual follow-up because you have turnover and, new people are coming in. So those type things are already helping accommodate it and making it more efficient. That's not enough. We still need people.
Yeah, I would imagine that's not a voluntold situation either. You're seeking people that are looking for opportunities maybe to kind of expand their skill set or the tools that they have in their belt, and they're actually interested or have a passion for teaching and contributing in the development of some of these materials to help others within the organization. From a career pathing perspective, it might be an opportunity for them to grow within your organization as well by exhibiting some of those skills. Does it work out in that way?
It does. It does. And we end up with people that eventually move over and become full-time trainers and teachers in doing that. One of our programs that we have is called Flow, and it's largely about how to have everybody be an owner, filling the schedule and culture and the pieces that are there. And the person who runs that used to be a practice manager. And then she was helping the doctor teach it and coach it. And now she's, stepped in and leading that, in a big way across the country. So that's an example. I'd say another topic, and it is impactful in dentistry, is there's a big push right now at various states to restrict or eliminate platforms that have private equity investment. And we cannot do the things that we've done, the training programs, stuff like that I was talking about on scaling, without having private equity partners as a financing source. And I think there's a big misunderstanding. I think there's been a couple of bad instances in Massachusetts, as an example, with the hospital system where some things really were not handled well. But as a result, this regulatory environment is out there. And I don't think the people that are proposing the legislation understand that they probably are seeing a dentist in their dental care and don't even know that it's a private equity organization that's taking care of them. And private equity has been a good thing, not a bad thing. And it's helped us raise the bar for dentistry and really put some of the quality programs in, those best practices, take people off of islands, and partners really trying to help other partners succeed and become better dentists, and also creating more time for them to spend with their patients rather than, trying to make sure that the rent is paid and the utility bills are done and that insurance is taken care of. Let other people do that and use those skills. And you really can't grow and do it without having a financial partner at scale to go make it happen. So I think that's some of the headwinds that are coming. And ideally, I do a lot of work with the ADSO, and I'm heavily involved there. And ideally, ADSO and other associations, as I mentioned earlier, AAE, ADA, everybody can come together and educate people around the value of this, rather than it becoming something that either causes a slowdown or causes challenges to operate in various states. So that's a headwind, but I think it's one that will eventually solve itself. It's just an ongoing challenge.
I believe there was recent legislation that passed through the California legislature, but Newsom actually vetoed it.
Yeah, and it was fantastic. And that was due to lobbying efforts by, those organizations that I just mentioned. The AD was heavily involved in that. And a lot of us, you mentioned earlier, another leader that you interviewed not long ago, he was very instrumental in, especially in California, go through and exercise a lot of that. So it's something that we all need to do together. We need to get the message out there that it's good for dentistry, not bad. So.
I was actually encouraged by that because for whatever reason, I had the notion that if anybody was going to pass laws against this, it would be the state of California. So the fact that even though it was pushed through the legislature that the governor recognized that, this is the wrong path to take. I think it bodes well for other kind of more conservative states as well that probably would not consider even putting that same sort of legislature through their government. But it is great that we have organizations like ADSO that are out there, advocating for the industry. And I agree completely. I mean, obviously there's, in any type of business environment, you can find examples of bad actors who are doing things in a way that isn't ideal. But preponderance of evidence is that for the most part, DSOs have been, private equity-backed DSOs have been a positive for the space and brought in new innovation and, to your point, pulling people off of islands and collaboration. I think it's one thing that people love about this industry in general is that there is an openness that individuals have within organizations at the highest levels like yourself, that you're willing to speak with others and help coach and guide and mentor and share best practices. So hopefully that, continues.
I think it is very unique. I spent the first part of my career more focused on traditional healthcare and healthcare technology. And I was very surprised on the dental side to see how many of the DSOs and independent dentists and everybody would really come together and work together in a transparent way to help them be successful. My brother is an independent dentist. My nephew is, as I mentioned, they're not affiliated with the DSO as well. My brother happens to be the president of his state dental association. And he and I have had a lot of conversations about this. And there's opportunity for all of us to exist and go do the right thing. And back to the culture fit, it's got to be what's the right fit for those dentists. Do they fit in a DSO model, or do they fit better as an independent dentist? And how do they do it? But working together, we can elevate it for everyone.
Yeah, DSOs offer optionality in many ways for the independent and private practices. You mentioned earlier, passion of yours is coaching, and that you really like mentorship and guidance for CEOs and executives. When, let's say that there's somebody that's starting out a new DSO or a new group, maybe it's doctor owned right now, and they want to bring in some executive leadership, considering a financial sponsor as well. What is your advice? Like, what is the role of a CEO? What are the most important priorities that you would say, here's what you got to get right? Even if there's a bunch of other stuff that you don't, these are the most important things.
It's really, and it's funny, we talk about it all the time inside of Specialized Dental Partner. We have clinical specialists and we have business specialists. And recognizing that to really scale and succeed, you need to bring in a business specialist and have a business specialist build a team of business specialists that can truly be your partner and work alongside each other to go grow something is really the key to that. And a lot of doctors don't see that until it's too late and they get to a certain size. And there's a ton of different models out there that talk about hurdles that and as you grow. And one of my favorites has basically time and size on the axis, and it talks about the different hurdles that you hit. And what'll happen is they'll get to a certain size. Usually it's around 20 to 25 million of, top line revenue. And if they haven't built the infrastructure, they start to implode because there's not enough cycles in the day for them to do both the business side and the clinical side. And it's a key component, and they don't have the experience, and they don't realize that once you hit that place, you got to reinvest all the profits back into business to go grow to the next level. And so it's something that I would highly encourage anybody that's thinking about it, go find that right business partner and make sure that they have grown things at scale before, that they have the resources, they have a business plan, they know how to build a team, they have connections in the community to go pull that team together and go do that. Don't just hire somebody who was, a practice manager and make them CEO that has never done it before and got down that path. Go really find somebody who's been there and done it. And it's going to cost money. I mean, and that money is, in the form usually of a base salary, a bonus, and some equity. And so it's something that you also have to accept that the business people, while their base salaries may be lower than a lot of the clinicians that are out there and what they bring home, when you throw the bonus in and more importantly the equity in, typically it's a good career path, and you can't be cheap in that when you're making that investment.
Yeah. Any war stories or experiences when you look back over the past decade where a moment or a season or a period of time where you were just like, I can't believe this is happening, where there was just a particularly challenging phase that you had to work through?
Yeah, I mean, there's been multiple. What I would say is the past few years, there were groups, and the economy has kind of squeezed them out of it. They were going out and they were doing what I call EBITDA stacking. They were basically just buying practices, slapping them together. They were paying above market multiples for these practices with promises of significant upside on the equity. And a lot of those groups really didn't build the infrastructure, build the platform, and go do the things that they needed to do to be around for a long time. And it was hard to watch it happening, and really hard to have conversations at times with doctors, and they were going to go that path because the headline number was higher up front, and the pieces that were there. And some really good people got caught up in, and the value of their equity that they thought they were going to get is not likely to be what it is when they hit an exit and go through that side of the equation. So I think there's been a bit of a market reset, and the private equity guys are looking at it, and they're only investing in platforms that do have infrastructure, that have a team built, that have, things like we've talked about on this call, and they're looking to invest in the leaders. Those other groups are going to struggle for a while. And it's been hard to watch. I do believe dentistry is solid, so that they will get picked up in some way, form, or fashion, probably by strategics, possibly by other private equity groups. And it will get built, and it will get done the right way. It's just going to be a lot more painful. And I hate that's happened, out there in the market. So that's probably been the hardest thing to watch and to see. And I'm glad that normalcy has come back. And today, there's conversations about, we're building something that's here for the long run. And multiples have come down as a result, both at an individual affiliation level and for platforms. But as a result, I think there are better businesses that are being built the right way for the long run.
As you look towards the rest of 2025 and maybe into 2026, what makes you excited about dentistry? Is there any particular projects that you're working on? What are the reasons that you're bullish for the industry in general?
I actually believe it is a great time to be in dentistry. I mean, it's because of some of the things that I mentioned, the focus on AI and the technology innovations that are coming. I do think the reset that I just talked about has got everybody focused back on, let's do the right thing for the patients. Let's build the business the right way. And the industry, focused on those things as well. And schools are engaging, associations are partnering together in ways that they haven't before to go do it. So I think people are really coming together to go continue to make dentistry special. And then there's some innovation. Saliva testing is one of them. We're piloting it. Some of the other groups are doing it as well and rolling it out, where there are things that are going to help dentistry and the mouth get put back in the body as healthcare. It's been separate for many, many years. And I think there's a lot of things that are happening that people are identifying other diseases that can be identified through oral healthcare, and it's causing dentists to work together with primary care providers, other specialists, and in the healthcare industry to really take a holistic approach to how to care for people. So I see that as a huge opportunity and possibility for us as well.
Yeah, I don't know if you've met Dr. Scotte Hudsmith out of the Northwest with Premier Dental Care, Dental 365, but they're a large customer of ours. I think they're over 130 practices now, and they've been big on the saliva testing for quite some time and doing multi-specialty. It's all very fascinating.
Yeah, and Pacific is now Pacific Health Services. I think I got it right. And Steve Thorne is very big as well on the saliva testing, and we're doing it. We are actually really helping our endodontist do it, and that then brings in the periodontist in the overall piece, and it helps around implants that are being done by the oral surgeon, everything else that's there. So we're seeing some great results from it, and helping identify some of those other health-related issues that are there. In fact, our team was testing it out, and one of our team members ended up spiking real high, and the periodontist checked him out and everything and said, you really should go see your primary care. And she found out she was diabetic.
Oh, wow.
I would have never known it. So just the implementation itself and teaching our team how to do it turned out to be a huge benefit for us.
That's incredible. I appreciate the time, Scotty. This has been a great conversation, and I just thank you for joining. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the audience before we jump off? Anything else that you're working on currently?
And no, I thank you, for having me on and for doing this. I love what you guys are doing, and I love that, again, getting the message out that we can all come together and go make this a huge success is phenomenal. So thank you for helping spread the word.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. The Dental Economist Show is brought to you by Planet DDS, home of Dental OS. To find out more about how cloud-based dental software by Planet DDS helps unleash dentists and their staff to focus on patient care, visit www.planetdds.com. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes by following wherever you listen to podcasts. And thank you for listening.